One, two, one, two. All right, let's roll.
Welcome. You're listening to the Saddle Up Podcast,
where we discuss everything related to UTRGV Athletics, past or present. We'll catch up with old teammates, friends, and take you down memory lane
with exclusive interviews.
This is the Saddle Up Podcast,
the voice of your covered walkway streets.
So dope.
This is gonna be awesome.
Stay tuned for new episodes every week.
From Bronx Village to the Fieldhouse,
we'll cover it all.
Hell yeah, dude. Carpe diem.
So saddle up and let's go.
Let's go.
Saddle up, partner.
All right, guys. We got another great guest this week. G's in the house. G, what's up, man?
I'm not a guest, but you might have kicked me off the podcast already, and then I'm intruding as a guest.
No, you're definitely not a guest. You're definitely one of the main reasons why this podcast has been really, really popular, and you're always on time. So I appreciate your punctuality.
Always on time. Yeah.
And this week we have Clarisa, and she is part of, and I'll let her introduce herself, but she is part of the communication staff there at the university, the athletic department. And Clarisa, you want to say hi? What's up?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Clarisa, or Claire, whichever one you want to call me. I work with athletic communications here at UTRGV, sports information director for our volleyball teams, men's and women's tennis, and track and field and cross country. So work directly with them, but also, we pitch in with all the other teams as well. So it's very hands-on department. So it's
put that all on your business card? Like, that's amazing. Like,
awesome. It's got to go to the back. It wraps around the card. It just wraps around.
Listen, I know Jonah's been on here before. If Jonah can fit his title on a business card, then anybody can fit their title.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Jonah. He's amazing. So we've got Clarisa, or Claire, on the podcast this week, but we're going to do something a little bit different, right? So Claire is doing a story on, or write-up on, G, and I just happen to be in the article because of my acquaintance with G. And
I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard about that.
And she is going to interview us for an article that has already come out, but she's doing it now. You'll get it. So this is the whole Inception episode for Saddle Up Podcast. So
we're really happy to have Claire on.
Yeah,
and Claire,
thrilled.
we are so open to any question. If you want to ask me about like records that I broke at St. Joe, anything like that. Are we recording?
Yeah, we are recording. It's
okay. Okay. Well, yeah, we're pretty much.
Claire, we'll let you take over the interview, and we'll let you kind of dictate the episode. So take it away.
Awesome. All right. I feel like that's a little bit of pressure, but let's go. So
it is, Claire. It is. You got a lot. Big shoes to fill.
Yeah, but I know, like, the podcast, you guys have done several episodes now, talked to a few really great guests. So we'll start with a pretty easy one. Just what have been some of your favorite moments from the first season of getting this podcast going?
Yeah, take that away, Matt.
No, I was gonna say G comes first in the alphabet. So go ahead, G. That's your.
I like this. So our favorite moment, Claire, was when we started talking about doing a podcast. Late nights during COVID. We would get these group of guys together, are really our best friends. And I'm gonna name off some names. I'm sure you kind of know some of them. Lalo Rios was part of the COVID Zoom calls. We would do like a weekly Zoom call. Brian Molina was on that call. Mike Mancias, some people know who he is, on that call. Bert Garcia is an former UTPA alum, also was a president for the Vipers for a while. And now doing some good work with Donnie Nelson with the Mavericks and with different projects up in Dallas. Robert Torres was, we used to call him cousin Rob, I think Lalo's cousin. He just kind of, he came into the mix and became our friend.
He was just adopted into the group, but
he was adopted into the group, and but he's the head of the officials for the RGV right now.
For
So
Tasso.
your basketball, the head of the Tasso basketball officials, Robert Torres. And am I missing anybody in that group, Matt? And then myself and
then
you.
myself and G. Yeah, that was pretty much it.
And we would have these weekly calls, and just messing around. Just we missed each other. We couldn't go and see each other. Everybody had families. They lived where they lived, and but Matt and I, and sometimes Brian, would kind of take it to another level, right? We couldn't get enough. We just couldn't get enough. So we would get back on a Zoom call till about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and just talking about everything. And we came up with this idea where, it'd be a pretty cool thing if we did a podcast one day. That was back then. So
how do
2
we
years,
how do we do it?
Yeah. Like, how do we do it, man? How do what will be the idea behind it? And then Matt, I think it just a light bulb came on, and he's like, man, I've been talking to a bunch of UTPA guys and ladies, and we got to somehow bridge the gap. We got to somehow bring that world that we lived in, that we knew of, and all the people that lived in that world, and transition them and bridge them with what it is now. What UTRGV is becoming, what it has become, the people that work there now, and how that kind of intertwines. And I was like, and he actually said it just like that, word for word. and I said, man, you've got something right there. Like, this is unbelievable. Like, we have to do this. We have to start doing this. Let's put together a list of guests. And, some of the first guests that we thought of are like just legendary names, like Jim Lancaster. The guy was just part of, our life back then. And then we thought about, we have to bring in the head honcho, right? The head vaquero right now, the guy like orchestrating everything. He's like, we got, man, Chase is, if
we were looking for that, honestly, not to cut G off, but we were looking for that validity, that credibility right from the beginning, right? Because
of course,
you got two guys that, has-beens or whatever, right, that are starting this podcast.
Well, one guy. One guy for sure.
We wanted to make sure that people took us serious. It was more like,
right.
Yeah, it's fun, but we wanted it just wasn't us interviewing our buddies, like
right. And
buddies.
And that's the way it was, right? During COVID, it was like, how do we make this experience, like an experience that people can enjoy, can actually say, you know what, man, let's listen to this, because they talk about some really cool stuff. I know that they always kind of rag on each other a little bit. And, you talk about my 5 steals all the time and 12 points for my career was it 12 or 7? I don't know. I can't remember.
It was 12. I think it was 12 points, 5 steals for your career. Yeah.
Yeah. And I talk about how he led the nation in fouls, so we have fun. But at the same time, we're like, we got to bring in people that will give us validity, like Matt said. So I think, honestly, Claire, I think some of the best moments were those beginning moments, like thinking about the podcast. And of course, like, there's been so many cool moments with our guests. Like, I mean, having Bianca Torre on, and her talking about her students.
Yeah, she's a Cameron County kid. There you go.
Like, she's a Cameron County lady, she's like, and we look at her as a kid because we've known her for a while, but now she's got a family and all that. Just seeing how all of these people that are on, who they've become, the kind of people that they've become. And we kind of like, when we had Michelle Hinton on, or Lisa Sig on, or people that we went to school with, right? Lalo Rios, Brian Molina. Of course, we know Brian and Lalo, and we talk all the time, but there's some guests that we've had on. It's like, man, like, we just, like, it never went away, it was like, we've been talking to them forever, and we haven't talked to them in like 15, 20 years.
And what we've found, during this exploration of, trying to find guests and so forth, like, we've found out that there's a lot of people connected to the university that played a role in their life, but maybe they didn't attend the university, right? Like, say, for instance, Neville Shedd, who played on that Texas Western team that won the national championship, that inspired the movie Glory Road. And he's in his, he's 80 years old now. He just turned 80. He used to play against Pan Am and Otto Moore and Lucius Jackson every year that he played college ball. So he's been to Edinburgh. He's been in battles against Otto Moore. And then they go off and win, they beat Kentucky to win the national title and Inspire Glory Road. Like
he's got more stories. He had a lot of stories. He was telling stories about the Bronx players.
Yeah,
he was telling stories about where he played. He remembered the high school.
Yeah,
that didn't
make that hit the editing floor, right? But he could have sat there and talked for 2 hours with us. He was willing. He was so gracious, and he's an awesome man. But going back to, people have experiences with the university that are famous and that are they look back and they're like, like Pan Am played a role in my life in some form or fashion. I think that's what's really cool, is finding out that the school, whether it be UTRGV or Pan Am, whatever it is, it's still the university.
And Matt, the
big
piggyback
role in people's lives, and I think that's what's cool in discovering how significant a role it does play.
You mentioned, like, obviously, the idea came to mind during these like COVID talks, but when you really started like putting the pieces together, what was that process of figuring out how to turn that idea into what it is now?
Well, I'll take this question, G. It was a lot of back and forth, a lot of phone calls between G and I, a lot of questioning ourselves, like, hey, should we, do we do this? Do we, what would this, like tinkering it? But it was also a lot of whiskey. And so it was just more like, okay, I get to hang out with my best friend for an hour or two, because sometimes we record back to back for the week, but I get to hang out with my best friend for 2 hours a week, and get to talk to former athletes or supporters, people that have been around the the programs, and it's really, really cool to see how it was just in its infancy, where it was just an idea, and how we just kind of tinkered with it until, because there's episodes that we'll never air that when we were first playing with it, it was like really bad. It was like, we'll never air that pilot episode.
We invited family and friends to come and pilot it, and those episodes will never air.
Just so G and I could work out the kinks of like, chemistry. I mean, we got chemistry, but just not stepping on each other's toes or whatever, and getting the technical stuff out of the way. But it's been really great to see the engagement and the feedback that we've gotten from the programs and from athletes, and the messages that we get, in the mailboxes, like, hey, when can I get on? Or, I want to be on.
Oh, Claire, I've already gotten threats. Like,
he's already gotten threat.
How dare you? How
Store.
dare you, man?
Exactly.
I haven't even gotten a call. Oh, man.
So about the time you're walking out of the grocery store.
Yeah,
they drove by. Yeah.
Someone drove by and started like, hey, man, like, you got to get me on. I was like, what are you talking about?
Did you know who it was? Like, do you know who it was? Or was an actual connection?
Claire, I think so. I don't think so. I don't know how he knew. I said, Matt, I'm getting threats at the grocery store, man. Like, we didn't think we didn't think this through. If I'm getting threats at the grocery by the fruit aisle, it's
exactly.
Who's been the biggest name that like contacted you and said, why haven't you got me on? And you thought, oh my gosh, maybe we should have this person earlier. Has there been a moment like that?
It would be Claire. Claire was the one that contacted us and said, hey, I want to get on. And so
Claire was like, I can't believe you had Chase and Jonah on before me. I cannot believe it.
Technically, Chase got me on here. So
So we're doing this immersive episode right now. The article
Claire
with the so Claire is the one.
Claire's arm was twisted. Don't get that twisted. It was twisted. She didn't really want to be on. She didn't really
She's
want
like,
to
who are these
be on.
clowns?
They're making her.
Like,
They're making Claire be on. She's like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe it. I regret this 100%.
That's awesome. And so kind of like tying it to, you know, your former athlete life, maybe you do still do some rec sports or things like that. But obviously, you know, as an athlete, you have to practice at things, you have to work at things outside of your specific practice time, like when you're a team. So do you guys ever do like maybe research? Are there some podcasts that you guys like to listen to or watch that you think you maybe try to pick up tips from and stuff so that you're getting better from episode to episode?
Yeah, that's a great question. Go ahead.
It is
G.
a great question.
It looks like you got an answer.
I had so many things like pop in my head when Claire was asking that question. So Claire, this is funny. This is a funny thing. I have always been, you know, I'm in sales. So I do, you know, presentations for school districts all the time because I sell educational materials, resources, textbooks, all that good stuff. And there's a certain amount of preparation that comes with it, right? So when Matt and I were talking about having guests, you know, I was really nervous because I'm like, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to, like, you know? And it's like, Matt, dude, like, we got to do our research. And Matt's like, nah, we don't need to do any research. And I was like, okay. He goes, it's just a conversation, man. Chill out.
It's a conversation.
Said, it's just a conversation. I said, you know what? So when I kind of like relaxed a little and was like, you know, okay, I think the organic conversation, I think, is a little bit what makes it, I guess gives it the chemistry that it has. We don't do a lot of research except for the research that Matt has done with certain shows is when we have a guest on and we research their statistics. You know, we research, you know, some of the accolades that they had at the university.
Just so we can pivot sometimes and maybe
absolutely
bring that up, you know, but it's not.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's basically it's done organically. It's done, you know, as a conversation and not so much as a Q&A until we do a, like, my silly questions or Matt's silly. See, that's where we kind of got better, I think, throughout with every episode is, you know, what is G going to ask? You know, what does he like to ask? And what is he looking forward to asking? Just like Matt knew that I kind of wanted to answer this question, you know, I started kind of jiggling my shoulders a little bit, you know,
He's getting jiggy with it.
Yeah, my hat perked, you know, my head perked up, you know, but and I can tell when Matt, you know, same thing. So I think it's like it's a cool thing to have that chemistry. And honestly, the preparation has come from years and years of friendship. I really do believe that.
There's a trust. There's a trust in it.
Yeah,
you know?
There's a trust, and it's kind of cool that we had our guest. I don't know. Can we reveal? He's a season 2 guest, but I don't know if y'all.
Yeah, no, because this will air. Yeah, this will air after.
So we had
Rolly.
So we had Rolly on, and last name Gonzalez, right?
Gonzalez, Rolly Gonzalez.
Roland Gonzalez, and you know, his text message to us was after the show was, man, I really do think that you all are doing a great thing here, but more so, thank you for making me feel so comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, thank you for making me feel like it was just natural. Like I felt like I was just having a conversation with y'all, and I didn't feel like stiff at all. I was nervous at first because I didn't really know what I was stepping into. But 5 minutes into it,
he's
like
laid back, relaxed. But let me ask you, Claire, what's your favorite memory at the university?
That's a good question. Like you just said, that is a good one. Now I have some. I haven't been here for too long, but let me see.
Getting hired.
Getting hired was a good one, but the thing with that is, like, I waited like a month after I got told by Jonah that the job was mine before I actually started. So it just kind of like felt like
How was that month? How was that month? What was good? Take us through that month. Like, what was that month like?
Yeah, so that was December 2021. Like I said, I was working with the newspapers. I was the last about 2 years that I was on staff with the newspapers were pretty tough because I was the only sports reporter doing both newspapers. So I was covering all like basically 30 schools on the Cameron and Willacy County by myself. And so like the sports schedule, when you work in sports industry, like your schedule's crazy. It's always very busy.
Yeah.
And so trying to do all that by myself, like was a lot. And so we were like just finishing up football and volleyball season and everything. And I was kind of at that point where like I desperately needed that winter break time because I was just like exhausted from stuff. And I actually, like within a span of a week, I found out about 2 different jobs that kind of like, one was this one, and then there was another one with the school district that one of the coaches that I worked with at the newspaper, or because of the newspaper, had contacted me and said, hey, our district is looking for X position. Would you be interested in it? So I was kind of like looking at those 2 options. And then Jonah found out that I was looking at 2 other options. I was like, well,
you created your own leverage. I see.
Yes,
you.
yes. That's right, Claire. That's
completely
right.
unintentional.
Claire is a shark. Well,
That's all right.
Joni, you got yourself a winner, man. Thank you for adding her to the department. That's awesome.
But it was, it was really exciting. I mean, to be honest, when I applied for this job, like I wasn't expecting to get it because like I knew about like the SID position in athletic communications because of when I was working like in college. I went to school at Texas, and so I was working for the Daily Texan, which is our student newspaper there. So when you're covering sports over there, like you deal with the SIDs a lot because obviously it's a big athletic department. So you don't really get immediate access to the coaches or anything like that. You have to go to the SIDs for everything. And that was my first introduction to what this job even is. But I always wanted to be like writing for newspapers. That was what I wanted to do. That's what I went to school for. So I wasn't sure how much the skills were going to transition over. So in my mind, to be completely honest, when I applied for this job, I was like, okay, maybe I can get an interview. Maybe they'll remember me 2 or 3 years down the road when they need somebody else on staff because of football and all the other sports. So I was just kind of using it as an in to maybe like just be on the back of their mind, like for a future position. So then when they called me and was like, well, it's yours if you want it, basically, I was like, okay, that's actually really exciting. So exciting getting that call, but then I just like sat for like a month. So I was finishing up some stuff with the newspapers. Like I technically finished there, but I did complete a couple of projects, just kind of freelance over the last couple of weeks. And then just got started when the school year started in January, and it kind of just took off from there.
Sweet.
Claire, you said, absolutely. You mentioned the Daily Texan. Where was that?
That was in Austin. It was for the university.
Texas.
For the University of Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Daily Texan is the student-run newspaper that's out there. It's the equivalent, like for here, it's the Writer. We had the Daily Texan.
And you attended.
It is still called
the Writer.
UTRGV Writer. Yes.
Oh wow, man! It used to be called the Pan American. Remember?
It was the Pan American back in like when we went to school, which was probably like 3-4 centuries ago. But things have changed, dude. They have, they don't, they don't use a feathered pen. They don't use a feathered pen to write.
Send letters with a wax seal. That is my brand in that wax seal.
That is your brand, man. So Claire, you attended, what university did you attend?
University of Texas.
I went to Texas.
You went to UT. During that time at UT, what was were you writing? I mean, obviously you were a journalist, right? You graduated with a journalism degree. Was that what it was?
Yes, studied journalism.
As a student, were you a student writer?
So yes, I mean the first 2 years I was just taking classes, and I had heard about the Texan, but I was always kind of like nervous about applying for it, because I knew it was really competitive. But when I finally did, grew a lot in that spot. So I spent about 2 years covering the Daily Texan.
So what was the best thing you covered? That was, I wanted, like, who was what was one of the best things that you covered that you remember from that time?
Volleyball, very specifically. I do. So I did volleyball, and then I did 2 seasons with softball, and then I did 1 season with basketball.
Hey, Claire, I have a quick question for you. Yes. Do you think that after this episode comes out that your career will take a significant boost? in like just personally or work wise, just by interviewing us, or do you think
Yeah,
that?
I mean, that's the only reason I said yes to Chase asking me to do this story
Yeah.
was so that after the podcast, like I can
What he's
calls from
really
different
asking
schools.
is, are you looking forward to being threatened at the grocery store? That's
First,
what he's
yeah,
asking.
Claire, I can tell that this is mainly for personal gain, and I'm okay with that. Like usually people don't like to be used like this, but I'm 100% okay. I know that Matt is too. I'm going to speak for him because I don't want him.
That's this link is gonna go straight onto the resume, and I'm just gonna start sending it out.
Yeah, it's gonna be on. It's gonna be a link on our. It's gonna be a link on our LinkedIn. Like this is like.
That's why
Best pieces of work.
Yeah, shopping it. Like this is what I did with these two clowns, right? So.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Any other questions, Claire?
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, for sure. So so you mentioned as you guys were thinking about using this to like kind of be able to bridge the gap between the past and what UTRGV is now, because I know there is like, and understandably so, UTPA and Pan Am, like there are a lot of familial ties. I think that is what makes it maybe kind of hard for some people to get past the UTPA to UTRGV thing. So for you guys, I mean, in all honesty, like, was there ever a time like when you found out that the transition was happening to UTRGV, like, did you guys kind of go through any of those, like, oh, why are they my alma mater? Like, did you have those?
Yeah, we felt that, and we felt that for years, and that's kind of what the dialogue was during the COVID, and it's been like, I know how G feels, he knows how I felt. Like we felt kind of abandoned, and a lot of the athletes did so as well. Like, hey, this is what we blood, sweat, and tears for, and then all of a sudden they switch, they do a rebrand, right? And so a lot of the athletes feel that way still, former athletes. And what helped us was the relationship that we've gained with Chase, who's kind of welcomed us, and like, hey, he acknowledges like, hey guys, I understand and I sympathize with you, but there's really no turning back. And so we can either cry and not get anything done, or we can work together and we can, and build something
really
great
build it
that everybody can be proud of, right? And so that's what helped me.
Yeah.
And then I kind of, I introduced G to Chase. And then it's kind of like, now it's like G and I are kind of like, how can we help other athletes to accept, and that's kind of what we hope to accomplish with this podcast, is like,
so it's kind of a therapeutic type of thing a little bit, as well as reminiscing on what you guys had.
Man. Yeah. The reminiscing part is like the cool part. And I think that because of our relationships, it's all about relationships. That's what it's all about. Like, and so there's just like what Matt was talking about, relationship with that we had, relationships with people that went to Pan American. And then that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to bring those people back in to, and like they're part of the relationship. Like the relationship was never broken.
And what does it mean to you guys to be able to play a part in that? Because I mean, like you said, it is very important. Like you can't go backwards. It's not going to go back to UTPA, but UTRGV is actively trying, to remember the history, to also bring that into it, but to move into a different direction as well. So for you guys, what does it mean for you guys to be able to take a role in that, and for it to be recognized by Chase, who, as you guys have said, is the head honcho?
It's almost surreal, it's almost surreal, because G and I would have done that. We got on Zoom calls because, or FaceTime calls, because we're just close, and we did it all the time, right? We still do it. And like for us to take that and then to kind of put it into a concept and then grow it, and it received I don't want to say accolades, because we don't have any accolades, but it receives the attention or the fanfare that it is gathering, right? it makes you feel really good. And then for you to even think that we're even worth writing an article about just because we get on a podcast and bring in former athletes like that, it's surreal.
So, kind of piggybacking off of your great answers from that last part, like you guys did talk about, how can we be a part of it and like wanting to still belong. And I know Chase mentioned that, you guys are involved with the varsity club, lifetime members and stuff like that. So, what are some of those ways that you guys have really like taken initiative to find paths to staying connected to UTRGV?
Matt is like an awesome, obviously, a glue, right? He's always been a glue. We even did, when we did his episode, all we talked about was how Matt is like a glue, like just like people are attracted to him, right? And he's a magnet, right? And so he's awesome at doing that. He's awesome at bringing people together. I think from my perspective, and I think my, advantage is that I live here, right? I live in the Rio Grande Valley. So the best thing that I can do is actually physically show up.
Yeah.
And physically go and represent, physically go watch the basketball games, physically go watch the volleyball games, physically put my hands together and shout, for the Vaquero Nation and show that kind of support, right? And make sure that my family, that I take my family and I try to, bring those people to get me, me taking friends over or me calling over when they had the viewing party at walk-ons, for the basketball team, and I called a few of the ex, basketball players, hey man, come on over, and they came over. So I think, one of those things, just taking advantage of that situation of me actually being here physically, I think is the way that I feel like I can contribute, right?
And we've got big plans. We're going to take the show on the road, like next year during the conference tournaments.
Awesome.
We're gonna try and do, a couple episodes in Vegas. Yeah. And so
we're gonna go scope out Vegas next week to see where
we're scoping out Vegas for locations next week.
Strictly research, right? Strictly research.
Strictly research and work.
Claire,
yep, that's it.
Claire, if we bring in an official second co-host, you are it. You are it.
You're in.
No, you're it. Like you have the job, or you don't even have to. We keep it clear. We don't need. You're not gonna wait a month. You're not gonna wait a month.
You're gonna come on right off the bat. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If you take the job, and you would get the job, so don't doubt yourself. Don't ever say
we don't even need a resume.
Get it, but no.
We don't need anything.
You're one of one candidate, so you're pretty.
I like the
solid.
odds. Yeah, those odds.
Your odds are really good.
Yeah. But yeah, so real quick, I guess before we wrap up, you both mentioned obviously, you've been connected. I don't know how much you've been able to come out. I know Gonzalo, you said you live here, so maybe you guys have seen some of the games and been to some of the new facilities, seen some of the upgrades. Just as you kind of think back to the last 7 or however many years with UTRGV kind of becoming what it is and the athletic department growing, like what have maybe been some of your favorite moments or maybe just favorite upgrades that you've seen within the department?
So I did not recognize the basketball offices when I went in to that was amazing. And Coach Lowry gave me a little tour whenever those were built in the back end, when we used to have the academic, what was that called? We used to have it at the library
study hall.
Oh yeah, I forget about that. I forget what it's called because we hardly ever, I think we slept through it, but they had this awesome, they had made that back kind of offices into this whole academic center, and then they had built the basketball offices, and rest in peace, Coach Hill, that's where I met Coach Lou for the first time, and when Coach Lowry took me around, and I told Coach Hill, Coach Hill, I do not recognize this place. This is unbelievable.
Yeah,
it is. This is really awesome. What you're doing. So that's I haven't really had a tour of those facilities as of late, but it was when Coach Lou was there was the last time that Coach Lowry kind of took me around.
That tour is coming, right? So I think we're all really excited about football and
Well, the field house,
the
man.
facility,
The
like the new
going,
field house. Yeah.
well, like you look up and there's this big old screen, man, and it's like, dude, we did not have
No.
this.
Well, when was
you know?
when was the last time you saw the screen in the field house? Because they just finished putting up our new one, and it is
I've
Okay.
seen the new one.
massive.
Yeah, I've
So-
seen the new one.
So
they
Matt,
sent
you've
me
seen the gigantic one, right? The one I actually went to a basketball game this year. Was it up this year?
No,
we just finished it like a week
I'll
ago.
send you. I'll send you the text right now, G. Like,
Claire,
this is-
Claire, you don't have to send me anything. I'm on my way to Edinburgh right now.
It's pretty big. It's pretty big.
No, I'll make sure to stop by and check it out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna
That is
send it
awesome.
to you now right now, G. It's
Okay.
it's unreal.
You see, Claire, I don't get those text messages.
But I think we went to school and there was that one men's locker room, right? And there was the big old showers, and it was the PE lockers,
Yeah.
and that was it. The training room was fairly decent, but it was, it wasn't what it is now. I mean, the changes that I've seen when I went back 2 years ago, and then what I see on TV or what I see on, Facebook or whatever on the internet, just kudos to the whole. I mean, I know Chase gets a lot of the credit, but kudos to the entire staff, because what you guys are doing, it's building it up as a reputable Division I program now.
Mhm.
It's not just kind of the armpit of the valley. It is a legit program to be reckoned with, and that's what's exciting, to be a part of something like that.
Yeah, no, I think you put it great there. And I actually literally made a note, good Matt quote at this point, because I really liked what you
That's
said.
what I'm
there.
here for, Claire. That's what I
Claire,
do. Like,
Claire,
I'm gonna drop the mic now, like boom.
Yeah. Did you ever write down good G quote, or is it just that pertaining to Matt?
I have
You're
some,
on
I
there
have
somewhere,
some,
G.
I have some time.
I mean,
here, don't
are
worry.
you gonna quote me at all?
Yes, I will. I promise. Yes, I will.
I'd be so disappointed if he
I
wasn't.
worry about FOMO. I worry about FOMO sometimes,
But so kind of piggybacking off of what Matt said there. This would probably just be my final question. Like,
No, you're not going anywhere. This is our first interview, and we don't want it to
No.
end. Like, yeah.
Well, longest
so and
2-hour episode.
going off of like what he said, and G, I know throughout this, like, you've mentioned the relationships a lot, and you guys have talked about all those, like the fact that you guys can still text so many people that you went to college with, and like you have that open communication. I think it's a really special thing. And it speaks to those relationships that you've talked about. So what was it about your time at school here, and especially like with the way the culture that you guys had kind of also ties into just what the RGV is as a whole? Like, what is it about that culture that you think makes those relationships so strong, that all of these years past, you're still good friends, you're still having Zoom calls, and you're still so able to put something like this together because you have those connections with the people that you were at school with?
Do you want to take that, Matt, or do you want me to start it off?
I'll let you start it
Yeah.
off, because I've
Yeah.
got my thoughts, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I think from, and you mentioned culture. The university where it's located has taken on for years, right? Probably since the beginning of time when the university opened, has taken the culture of the Rio Grande Valley, the culture of family first. And that's what the Valley is. And when someone comes in from the outside, right, they get engulfed in it. They get saturated in that culture. I truly believe that.
If they are accepted, because
absolutely.
some people come through and it's weird. The culture can identify, like, you're not going to be here long, so we're going to keep that wall up, right?
You're
but
right.
If they
but
identify
I think it goes,
you, if they accept you,
then,
yeah.
But it goes both ways. It goes both ways, Claire. Like, just like what Matt said, if they accept, right? If the university and the people in the university accept, and the RGV accepts, but the person that comes in actually has to buy into that.
Yes.
They have to buy into,
Very true.
I am one of you all. I'm
Yep.
not a person from Jamaica or Minnesota or New
Chicago
York
or wherever. Yeah.
Chicago. I'm better than you. That's not the way that's not the way when people come in and they buy into the culture that is already established, that the university is already, because of its location, because of family first mentality. I think, Matt is a perfect example. I mean, he was born and raised, I had some ties to the Valley, right?
I
But
did. Yeah, I
from
do.
from Bastrop.
Mm-hmm.
But Matt really kind of, it was easy for me because I stayed here, right? I was born and raised in Brownsville. So I knew the culture. I knew that when Matt came in, I probably a little bit of a culture shock, but not really, because Matt was probably like, hey, right?
Yeah.
How did you feel when you came in? You bought into that culture. I think it
did.
goes both ways.
I did. I did.
Yeah, I don't think there should be any great. I think what Vaquero is and what UTRGV is now and what it's building should be the mainstream show. That is what it is. People need to be patient, because down the line, when we strengthen UTRGV, then you know what? We're gonna have those funds. We're gonna be able to go back and do a throwback helmet, a Bronc throwback helmet, or uniform night like they did in basketball when they wore the UT Pan American Bronc throwbacks. We just got to establish football for UTRGV football first. It's not Pan American football, and I think people need to kind of get over that fact and be patient with the entire process, because I guarantee you, Pete, with the job that you all are doing, it's not going to be forgotten. It's not going to be forgotten. There are going to be throwback days, throwback nights, throwback unis, throwback helmets, but we need to strengthen what UTRGV is now and what it's becoming.
Agreed.
And that I totally believe in.
Yeah, agreed. You couldn't have said it better, G. I 1,000% agree with you.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for liking our show. And please do subscribe. We're always looking, for just engagement, for ideas, and we're just trying to do something for somebody else. We're just trying to solve a problem, and however and I get to hang out with him and interview really cool people. Yeah,
we get to have awesome guests on, Claire. I appreciate you. Appreciate you and appreciate being on.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm sure we'll be in touch again before this comes out, but I do appreciate your time and all the great information that you guys gave.
Fantastic. And that's a wrap, guys.
That's a wrap. Dang it, dude. I wanted this to be on the record. I'm working on a Saddle Up song. I don't know if a lot of people don't know that I actually play guitar and write songs.
Yeah,
Matt knows this. But I'm actually working on a theme song, a Saddle Up song. Yeah.
There you go.
Is it gonna
now my co-host has been watching way too much fucking Yellowstone, and now he thinks he's now he thinks yeah, exactly. Now he thinks he's Casey from Yellowstone. He's gonna get his own his own song on the episode. Oh man.
Oh, saddle up.
All right, Casey Dutton. Whatever, man.
Well, I'm excited to hear it. So
thank you, Claire. You'll be the first one. Second, Matt will be the first.
Yeah,
my wife will probably be the first. My wife will probably be like, dude, please put the guitar away. I'm trying to sleep.
10.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't supposed to come up with something this clean. Like, something happened